Gideon wasn't instantly filled with courage. And I want to ask you a question. Have you been instantly filled with courage with any of the episodes that I've done on having courage and overcoming self-doubt? Probably not. Because it is a journey. It is a journey. If you've ever felt too weak, too insignificant, or too unqualified, which is the word I often hear, to lead, this episode is definitely for you. Today we're talking about Gideon, a man who literally hid when God called him to lead. Sometimes you feel like you want to hide, but Gideon actually did that. But despite his fear, despite his doubts, God saw something in him that he didn't see in himself. But guess what? He also actually sees that same thing in you. And we just find it so hard to believe that God would see something in us and that he would call us to lead. So, if you've ever felt like you're not good enough, then stay with me, because God specializes in using the least likely people to do the most extraordinary things.
Do you wish that you could lead your team in a way that honors and glorifies God? Are you struggling to overcome self-doubt as a leader and have a desire to be more confident in your role? Welcome to the Women of Faith in Leadership podcast. I'm Rika, and for the last decade, I've experienced my fair share of managing challenging employees and teams in middle management leadership roles. I committed my leadership journey to God, and it changed everything. And I'm ready to share everything I've learned with you. Now, if you're ready to lead your team in a way that honors God, grab that notebook and pen, and don't forget your chai latte, and let's dive in.
Before we get this episode started, I'd like to personally invite you to come and join an amazing community of female Christian leaders. These female Christian leaders are just like you. They're struggling with self-doubt. They are eager to lead like Jesus. They are eager to be good leaders in the eyes of the Lord, but also to feel comfortable with their own leadership styles. And once a fortnight, I have been going live in this community where I have been sharing something very special that I am not planning on sharing on the podcast. And in particular, I'd like to tell you what that is. Maybe I will entice you to come and join the community. Well, at the moment, we're working through Proverbs 31. And I am sharing on how you can become a Proverbs 31 woman and leader, because there's quite a lot of leadership lessons for us to learn from Proverbs 31. So once a fortnight, I go live in the community and I share that with you. So please come and join us at womenoffaithinleadership.com, or you can go to Facebook directly and search Women of Faith in Leadership Community. Now imagine this. The Israelites were in trouble. Again, right? If you have read the Bible, you would know how many times the Israelites got themselves into trouble because they simply refused to listen to God. They simply refused to listen. Oh, it's so frustrating. They had turned away from God, and as a result, they were being oppressed by the Midianites. These enemies would invade their land, steal their crops, and leave them in a state of poverty and fear. It was a desperate, desperate time. And believe me, I think in those times when it was going so bad, they were saying, well, God, where are you now? Where are you? Why are you not looking after us? But I think that in that time, I know because it says so, is that they had actually turned away from God. And so God was allowing these things to happen. And where was Gideon at this point in time? Well, you guessed it, he was hiding. Judges 6 verse 11 tells us that Gideon was threshing wheat in a wine press. Now, normally wheat is threshed in an open area so that the wind can separate the grain from the chaff. But Gideon was so afraid of the Midianites that he was doing it in secret, in a wine press, an enclosed space. He was literally in survival mode. And then, out of nowhere, I love this. This is something that I love about the Bible. Out of nowhere, an angel of the Lord appears and says something that probably made Gideon look over his shoulder to see if somebody else was standing there. The angel said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." And I can just imagine Gideon at this point in time saying, "Who, me? Mate, you've got the wrong person. Definitely not me. Look at me, I'm hiding in a wine press. I'm not even doing the right thing." So Gideon must have really just been thinking, mighty warrior, who, me? No, definitely not. And he doesn't just accept the calling way. He doesn't. He actually pushes back. He says, if God is with us, why has all this happened to us? That's in Judges 6 verse 13. Gideon doubts that God even cares. Okay, because again, the Israelites had turned away from Israel and God let these things happen. Number 2, how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest and I am the least in my family. This is Judges 6 verse 15. Gideon sees himself as too small, too weak, and too unimportant. And isn't this just the truth about what we are doing at the moment to ourselves? Have you ever felt so unqualified for what God is asking you to do that you just say to yourself, no, not me. Definitely not me. Or you are so humble in your own opinion about yourself that you just think, well, no, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. You have so much self-doubt and you just don't want to do it. And I know that, you are all in leadership positions and you have shared with me how you have managed to get into these leadership positions. Some of you applied and went through a rigorous process. Other of you were promoted because your workplace believed that you had the capabilities to be promoted into that leadership role. But either one of these have got their strengths and weaknesses, because if you were promoted into a leadership position without applying for it, the negative of this is that you might not believe that you were worthy of that position. And you might be struggling with that mindset of, well, they believe in me, but I actually don't believe that I could do this. I don't think I'm good enough. That's why I didn't even apply for this role. The others of you who applied for the role and you have fought to be in that leadership role, well, you might have gotten there, but now that you're in that role, you kind of don't know what to do. You have fought so hard to be in that position, but now that you're in the position, you're like, okay, I'm here, now what? So that can be, you can actually be very assertive and you can actually be confident. But some of you I know still struggle with that self-doubt. So here's what's most powerful. God doesn't argue with Gideon's insecurities. I love that. He doesn't say, no, you're actually really strong and capable. No, you can do this. Instead, what does he say to him? Judges 6 verse 16, I will be with you. God's response isn't about who Gideon is. It's about who God is. And here's what I love about this story. I love this whole story, but Gideon wasn't instantly filled with courage. And I want to ask you a question. Have you been instantly filled with courage with any of the episodes that I've done on having courage and overcoming self-doubt? Probably not. Because it is a journey. It is a journey. But Gideon, he took it a bit far. He needed signs. It was like, God, give me a sign. He needed reassurance. He even put out a fleece asking God for confirmation, not once, but twice. And the Bible actually says, do not test God, but he did. And this is Judges 6 verse 36 to 40. And God in his grace met Gideon in his doubts. He actually showed him, he confirmed to him twice what that Gideon was called into leadership. And maybe today you're waiting for a sign. Maybe you need confirmation that God has really called you to lead, to speak, or to step up in your faith, in your leadership role. And I really want to let Gideon's story remind you that God is patient with your doubts. He is patient. And you've had so many self-doubts that you just can't get past it. So let's fast forward now and see what happens to Gideon. Gideon finally accepts his calling. Finally, okay? He gathers an army to fight the Midianites. And we all know, I've mentioned this story before, but then what happens? Gideon gathered an army of 32,000 men. But God did the unexpected. He told Gideon to shrink his army. He said, that's too many men. I don't want to use so many men. And the test was that they all had to go and drink water from like a lake or a dam or a water source. And the men who used their hands to drink the water, they could stay. The men who drank like dogs had to go because they were just not aware of their surroundings. So only 300 men remain. And Gideon must have thought, God, you're crazy. Like, there is no way that we are going to win and overcome the Midianites with 300 people. And you can go read this. This is in Judges 7, verse 2 to 7. So, but why did God do this? Why did he do that? It doesn't make sense, right? Does not make sense. Because God wanted Israel to know that the victory wasn't about Israel's strength, about their strength, but it was about God's power and about God's strength and what he can do with one man and what he can do with 300 men. He didn't want 32,000 men to fight. He actually only wanted 300. But the best of the story is that those 300 men didn't even fight. Let's read the rest of the story. These 300 men were armed with nothing but trumpets, jars, and torches, because it also says in the story that God told them to discard their weapons. And they only had to arm themselves with nothing but trumpets, jars, and torches. Gideon led them to an incredible, incredible victory. In the middle of the night, you have to go and read the story if you haven't read it yet. The Midianites were thrown into chaos and basically defeated because in the middle of the night, in pitch darkness, Gideon and his 300 men surrounded the Midianites, and they started playing their trumpets, their drums, and they started bashing the jars and breaking them. And the Midianites were so confused, and it was chaos, that they started killing each other. And so in the end, those men didn't even have to lift a hand. They didn't even have to kill anybody, because the Midianites actually ended up killing themselves. And this happened not because Gideon was strong, but because he trusted God and because God was amazing and God was powerful. That is the way it can be for you as well. God doesn't tell you to arm yourself with a sword. He does tell you, though, to arm yourself with the armor of God. God is telling you to put on the armor of God on a daily basis. That's what he wants, okay? And that armor doesn't mean you have to go and fight a battle with a sword, a real sword. That's cool. I love that, okay? So what can we learn from Gideon? Okay, let's see. 3 things that we can learn from Gideon. God sees more in you than you see in yourself. I truly believe this. This is a message that you need to hear today. You might feel weak, but God calls you mighty. You might feel unqualified, but God equips those he calls. Number 2, God is patient with your doubts. It's okay if you don't feel ready, but God can handle your questions, your fears, and even your hesitation. But I would like to invite you and I'd like to encourage you to share those doubts with God. Don't just keep it to yourself, because remember, he already knows that you've got these doubts and fears. All that he wants is for you to open up and to share them with him and to pray that you can overcome this doubt. 3, the victory doesn't depend on your strength. It depends on God's power. Gideon didn't win because he had the biggest army. Again, he had 300 men. He won because he trusted God. And your leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting the one who does. And I would like to invite you to even come and listen to next week's episode, because in next week's episode, I've got a guest on where we literally talk about leadership not having all the answers. You are going to love that guest that I have on my show, because we literally talk about how you can lean in as a leader and make God the decision maker in your life. But if you are going to do that, you need to also decide to let the self-doubt go. You need to let it go. And I know it's easier said than done. So if you're interested in doing coaching with me, I offer confidence coaching. And I am going to work with you, and we're going to work on what is the root cause of the self-doubt that you have. What is the root cause? Why are you so doubtful of yourself? And then I'm going to teach you how you can reframe those doubts. And in a moment of weakness, or in a moment that you really need to have confidence, what can you do? What are some physical and some mental strategies that you can apply to overcome your self-doubt in that moment? And then I'm not even going to leave you there. I am actually going to give you an action plan of action steps that you can implement over the next couple of weeks after our coaching session. And I'm even going to keep you accountable by doing a check-in 1 week later or 2 weeks later, whatever the agreed upon is that we are going to decide on. And you are going to be kept accountable. The only way you are going to get confident is if you practice confidence. The only way you're going to get over your self-doubt is by practicing, by having strategies to get over this self-doubt. And you're not only working with me, we are together. We are going to partner with God at the beginning of the coaching session, and we're going to say, God, this coaching session belongs to you. We want to work with you. We want to partner with you. And we pray for this person. And we bring this person to you, which is you listening to the show right now, to help them overcome self-doubt and to become the confident leader that they hope and pray that they could be. So if you're interested in coaching with me, I will leave a link in the show notes below. You can book a session with me. It's a once-off, no obligation. We can do the one session and you can decide whether you want to do more sessions or not. But the first session, I think if you just invest in that one session where I can help you to discern what is the root cause of this self-doubt, how can you reframe that, especially in a moment of doubt, and then get that action plan. I believe that it is going to help you to just get this process started of overcoming your self-doubt, because that's what I want for you. I want you to be a confident leader. So find the link in the show notes below, or you can simply email me at support@rikawhelan.com and let me know that you are interested in coaching, and we can chat about that. So I want to just talk to you again about what are these three things. I just want to go through them again. So number 1, God sees more in you than you do in yourself. 2, God is patient with your doubts. And 3, victory doesn't depend on your strength, but it depends on God's power. So I've got 2 questions for you. Where in your leadership are you feeling small, weak, or unqualified? Go and think about it. Go and journal on it. Go and pray about it. And then number 2, what is God calling you to step into, even if it scares you? Even if it scares you, you know that, I have to do that, but it feels very uncomfortable. What is it that's God calling you into? Okay. I want to challenge you this week. Pray about your fears, your doubts, and your insecurities. And then take a step forward. Even if it's a small step, even if you're unsure, trust that God is with you, just as he was with Gideon. Now, if this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Come and share your thoughts in our Women of Faith in Leadership Facebook community, where we can encourage and pray for each other, because we're just such an amazing, amazing, amazing female Christian leadership community. I love it. And don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with a fellow leader who needs this reminder today. If you know someone, and this is not you, this person who needs to overcome self-doubt and who needs to be confident, if you know someone, please share this episode with them. I cannot wait. I've got 4 more reluctant leaders in this series that I'm going to share with you. And to be honest, there is not only 6 reluctant leaders in the Bible. There's actually a lot more, because guess what? They were also human beings, just like us today. Obviously, they had many different challenges than what we have today. We've got all sorts of other challenges today. But I just pray that this episode has blessed you, and I pray that you would just lead forward and you would just trust God and just lay everything down at his feet. Let's end the episode by praying together. Dear God, I want to pray for these amazing women of faith, God, that you have just blessed by calling them into leadership. And I know some of them don't feel blessed. I know some of them feel the weight on their shoulders of being a leader. I know some of them are on a day-to-day basis just wanting to quit. That's what I feel in my heart. These leaders want to quit, because that's how I felt as well, God. But we cannot quit on our dreams, God. We cannot quit on the calling that you have in our life. We can, but God, we shouldn't, because you've called us, and therefore you'll equip us. And God, you have said multiple times, the word for the year for these leaders who are listening to this show is worthy. You are worthy to be a leader, because I called you to be a leader. God has called you to be a leader. He's called you into leadership, and he wants you to serve your team. He wants you to be there for them and to be like Jesus And if we want to be leaders like Jesus, we need to get to know you better, God. And I pray for each and every one of these amazing women, God, that they would just draw near to you, that they would just draw close to you, that they would just come and lay at the feet of Jesus and lay their self-doubt down and just trust you, God, to give them the tools, the strategies, and everything they need to be confident leaders. I want to pray for each and every one of them as they go through this week, as they take small steps towards becoming more confident. I pray that you will be with them. I pray that you will give them courage. I pray, Holy Spirit, that you'll speak through them this week as they have to make difficult decisions, as they sit in business meetings, as they sit in meetings with line managers, with employees, where the pressure is on them to make quick decisions. I pray, God, for discernment for them. I pray, God, that you would speak to them. And I pray, God, overall, that they would have peace in the decisions that they make. And if they don't have peace, that they'll be able to speak up, overcome the self-doubt of not being able to speak up in a meeting and put their hand up and say, in my opinion, or what I feel is that we shouldn't move ahead with this decision, or that this decision is incorrect, or that something negative is going to happen because of this decision that we're going to make. I pray, God, that you'll just give them that extra courage this week to move forward and to do the hard things that you've called them to do, because leadership is not easy. It is hard. And I pray, God, that you'll just be with them, keep them safe wherever they go, send your angels to protect them. And I pray this all in your mighty name. Amen. Now, until next time, keep leading with faith, courage, and confidence. And remember, God is with you. All right, everyone. Speak again next week. Bye.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts? It would mean so much to me to read your feedback. Also, it would really bless me big if you shared this episode with a fellow leader who might benefit from hearing today's message. And remember, put on the armor of God daily and walk by faith and not by sight. I'll meet you back on Monday for another episode.